What a guy that Patheticus is. What a guy. Our final storyteller tonight is a co-owner of Valdez U-Drive along with her husband Jeff Johnson. For 29 and a half years, they have enjoyed the Valdez Airport as their stage. Linda frequently reads the Valdez PD blotter to make sure her name no longer appears there. Please welcome Linda Brandenburg with a story we call Walking the Bear Prank.
In-laws very much, and this is all based on them when they were a lot younger. Many of the people here may remember Holly and Dave Johnson, and they lived for a good 20 years. Their swan song was when 9/11 happened. They were the tour operators for the Alyeska Marine Terminal tours, and 9/10 was their last tour. Shut them down and they moved away. But they didn't live in Valdez first. They first lived, before Valdez, they lived in Salcha, Alaska. And I always wondered, what were they doing in Salcha and where is Salcha before I ever saw it. But they also, the story before that was that they met very young, Holly and Dave did, and when he turned 18, he enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. And they lived in upstate New York, so he was drafted and down in Savannah, Georgia, went back up, got Holly, who at the time I think was 16, and decided they would get married and he'd bring her down to Savannah so that he could start his career. Well, within the year, she had Jeff, who is now my husband, and they continued to have more kids. In the process, Dave was going to be relocated to either Vietnam or Eielson Air Force Base. And now they had Jeff, a little baby in the oven, and a couple more kids hopefully planned. So they took Eielson Air Force Base to avoid the Vietnam thing. So off they go, and this is in 1960. They lived on Eielson for 6 years, and then it was time for Dave to get out of the service. They don't have hardly any money. They're a very poor little family, and so Holly looked in the paper and talked to some people and found out that there were 14 acres in Salcha, Alaska, that had a 3-room cabin. And the owner was Breen Canaday. Jeff used to always say it like it sounded like Kennedy. So I was like, Kennedy? He was like, no, Canaday. Okay. Well, anyway, she writes to him. He was in Seattle. And she asked him if he would have pity on them and sell the property to them, and if they could make payments. The property was only $3,500, which must have been like a huge amount of money back then, but he agreed. So the family loaded up and moved to Salcha, and this little cabin had a living room, a kitchen, a bedroom, and then a little out room in the house that was where they had the kids sleep in bunk beds. It had a wood stove. It did have electricity and faulty running water, so they had to use an outhouse. And Holly learned that first winter that she'd had lots of winters, but she learned in this cabin that you didn't spill water or anything on the floor in a cabin at 40 below because you had your indoor preschoolers ice rink, and that was not fun. So anyway, that was one of the lessons they learned. The summer of '67, Dave had a really wonderful friend named Jerry Stahl, and Jerry loved coming over to the Johnsons' property all the time because, well, he lived in the barracks on the base, and this was a fun family out in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and he just loved being out there and outdoorsy. Dave and Jerry and Dave's brother John went hunting, and they shot a black bear. And that was like a really cool thing that they got that done in their young lives, mid-20s. So anyway, Holly and Dave had that rug the bear turned into a bear rug, and they made sure that the head was still on it. Okay, that fall, Jerry is all excited. He gets this letter from a gal he doesn't even know, and she's wanting to pen pal with him, and she lives in Kansas City, it turns out, and she is a prissy little lady, but very sweet and nice, and he writes back to her, and she said, how did you find me? And she said, oh, my friend had a picture of you, and I thought you just looked like such a nice man, so I wanted to write to you. Anyway, months later, they have fallen in love, and he's thinking they should get married, so why don't you move up here to Alaska and give it a shot, and we'll get married and start our lives here. And she was adventurous enough to, okay, I'll do it. So Holly wanted to make sure she was comfortable, so she got a little trailer from her friends and got that stored on the property. And then Jerry, on the weekends or whenever he could, he'd stay in this little outbuilding where he always stayed. And so Jo is this lady's name. And there was one thing about her that they were kind of worried about, and that was she was incredibly afraid of wild animals. And she's moving to Alaska, and there could be a bear or something really scary out there in the woods. So she's kind of scared about that. So anyway, she gets there. Dave, or if Jerry wasn't there, anyway, it's May now. And so we all know in Alaska, by then we don't even have darkness. So it would be dusk when she'd want to, go to bed, and it'd be like 11. And so one of the guys, whoever was there, would escort her to her trailer and just comfort her, make sure everything's going to be fine. No, there's no problems with the bears, nothing like that. And we've never had one in our yard, whatever. And so the guys come up with this idea. And they decide that one night they are going to scare the living daylights out of her. And they're going to use that bear rug. And so Holly, this is the part where the guys would regret very soon what they did. They let her in on the joke that they were going to do this. So Holly took pity on poor Jo. This was going to be torture. She was already friends with her. This was going to be too scary for her. So she let her in on this prank and said, this is what we're going to do. She coached her when the guys weren't around. She showed her how to aim a .22, and it was unloaded. Holly made sure of that. And Holly also said, when the guys are going to start this, when Jerry comes around to the trailer, you're going to be screaming and acting like you're just horrified and help, whatever. And I'm going to give you a signal at one point when Jerry gets close to the door of your trailer. You're going to be able to see me. I'm going to raise my arm up, and that's when you're going to throw the door open and raise that rifle at you. So Joe's like, okay, I can do this, yeah. So anyway, the night finally comes, and Holly is excited. Dave is so excited. He's going to be watching this, and he just can't believe how funny this is going to be. And Jerry puts on that bear skin after he's walked her to her trailer, and you're tucked into bed, and everything's fine. And waits about 10 minutes, and then he sneaks over in that dusk. And Dave's standing by, watching from the cabin, and Holly was sort of on the other side of the cabin, watching. Well, anyway, where she knew that Jo would be able to see her. So Jerry goes over to that trailer, sneaks up, goes back to the back, and starts rocking the trailer. And making these sounds. And she's like, Jerry, no! Jerry, help me, there's a bear! Just screaming and just totally hamming it up. And so Dave is, this is the best, just laughing. So Jerry's still going around and just really, really letting her out. She's shrieking and screaming. Holly sneaks into the house really fast, comes back out. She described to me, a World War II Japanese 7mm rifle. And so it's time for her to give the salute, to her friend. And Jerry's getting over by the door, and Holly raises up her hand, and Joe just throws that door open. Jerry's right there, and she's like this with the rifle, and all of a sudden Holly just lets that shotgun off. And Jerry is, and Dave is, Jerry's dead. Oh my God. And once they kind of calm down and it's a little bit quiet, the laughter from Holly and Joe they're hysterical, just hysterical. They really let them have it. Amazingly enough, they got married a month later. And yeah, they got married, and it was very sweet. Holly and Dave stood up for them. The sad part at the end of that day, historically, was Holly and Dave were driving home that night after the wedding, and they will forever remember the date of the anniversary for their wedding, because it was June 6th, 1968, and it was the night that Bobby Kennedy had died from the assassination attempt from the day before. So that really kind of put a palm on it. But anyway, thank you very much. And